What's up, gamers? Papa Jumpluff here. Today we're going to be going over the Kingdra Scizor deck list that I've been playing for the last month or so. Before we get into it, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel and the video. Anyway, here's the first Pokemon here. Got the Horsey. It is from Aquapolis. I like this one because it's got 50 HP, which is pretty good. It also has Reverse Thrust, which is a nice piece of utility for the genetic memory that exists on the Kingdra. And if it's stuck in the active slot, you could just throw a double colorless energy on it and switch it with one of your bench Pokemon while dealing 20 damage to your opponent's active. Throw those over here. We've got the Seadra from Neo Genesis here. The Seadra's got 70 HP, still only 1 retreat cost, which is pretty good. Nothing crazy with Bubble. It's got the same text that Bubble has always had since the beginning. But Mud Splash is really the star of the show here. Mud Splash is if your opponent has any bench Pokemon, you choose one of them and flip a coin. If heads, you get to deal 10 damage to that Pokemon, and you just don't apply weakness or resistance, but you get to, hit their active and then do a little bit of snipe damage on the bench. Now, we're moving on to the Kingdra from Neo Revelation. It's got 90 HP, which is really, really good, especially with no weakness here. Genetic Memory is the real star, so it only costs 1 energy, and it's a colorless pip. And the text on here is that you get to use any of the previous evolution's attacks, so that includes Reverse Thrust, Bubble, or Mud Splash, and it does not care about the energy cost of those previous stages. So if all you have is a Warp Energy or a Cyclone Energy, you're able to use Mud Splash, which would have a double Water Pip, and it just does not matter. You get to Mud Splash to your heart's content with Kingdra here. The other attack, which is amazing if you get all the way up to 4 energy on the Kingdra, is Twister. You flip 2 coins, and for each heads, you choose 1 energy card on the defending Pokemon, and you discard that energy. So if you get double heads, that's 2 energy off of the defending Pokemon. However, if you do get double tails, this attack does nothing, not even damage. But otherwise, 50 damage outright and removing energy is huge for a tempo swing. So it's a really strong Pokemon, and it also is great because the counterpart here, which is Scizor, is a Steel type, and it covers the weakness of that Pokemon by being a Water type, all while not having a weakness itself, except for the prior stages, which are weak to Electric. So moving that off screen, I've got a 2-2 line for the Scizor here. Got the Jungle Scyther because it does not have a retreat cost, and yeah, I'm using the Classic Collection one. We're kind of lax about whether or not we can use the Classic Collection cards in the WotC-20 format, mostly because it's not an official format. So even though these cards say that they cannot be used in official tournaments, well, it's not an official tournament. So, yeah. It's also really great because it one-shots Aerodactyl. So, it's really, really good. And having no retreat cost means it's not really attractive for your opponent to gust it out and, kind of try and throw off your tempo there. But Scizor is extremely good. Not only can it not be poisoned, but it has 80 HP, which is a great amount of HP. Really good for Goldberry. It has Snatch, which deals 20 damage, and you get to swap out one of your opponent's undamaged bench Pokemon into the active slot before dealing the damage, which is really good for setting up knockouts with baby Pokemon because they all have 30 HP. So if you deal the 20 damage and then they retreat it, you can get it later with a Genetic Memory using Mud Splash and Seadra. This is, of course, different from before, where the trend was to stick Strength Charms on the Scizor, pull up the baby Pokemon, and then, hit it for 30 without having to, flip a coin because you're pulling it up from the bench. And I just, I think healing items is really where you want to be with a deck like this, rather than forcing the Strength Charm plays. I think Strength Charm is a bit too temporary, and I'd really prefer, my personal style is to prefer the staying power of the steel type, and the staying power of like really forcing the tempo with the Kingdra line here. So that's my philosophy. You also have heavy metal here, which is 30 damage outright, and then for each metal energy attached to Scizor, you get to flip a coin, and if heads, it deals 20 additional damage. So there's a game that I had earlier this week against a Wigglytuff Dark Crobat deck, and I had 4 metal energy on a Scizor in addition to a rainbow energy. So I was able to flip 5 coins for the heavy metal, and it was really crazy. Sometimes you just get really wild with Scizor. Next up, we've got the classic WotC-20 4 Clefas here. It's just, it really helps you set up in a format where you have a lower trainer count. So highly recommend, if you're going to get into the format, pick up these Clefas. These are on the cheaper end of things because they're from the Celebrations set. And then we've got our backline utility set. These are Black Star Promo Eevee with Chain Reaction. So whenever you evolve a Pokemon, or your opponent evolves a Pokemon, you just search your deck for a Pokemon that evolves from Eevee and attach it to Eevee. This counts as evolving it. I have the Aquapolis Espeon, and that is because of the Pokemon Power Energy Return. It lets you return an energy from a Pokemon that you control to your hand. So you get to reuse your utility energies over and over, or you get to move energy from a Pokemon to another Pokemon. Like if you have committed a double colorless energy and you want to move it from your Scizor to your Kingdra so that you could get your Twister, then you're able to do so. And it really helps to get the damage that you need to be outputting, or to just constantly put one energy down every single turn, and then you can just move it later. Or you could even reuse your rainbow energies. Say your opponent has something that's weak to Psychic. Well, you have the ability to pick up your rainbow energy and stick it on Espeon and exploit that weakness. So it's really, really, really good. Anyways, moving on to the trainers now. I'm going to start with the supporters. I've got 2 copycats here. I really like to have 2 copycats in a lot of my decks. It helps when your opponents, like knowing that a lot of players are going to be on 4 Clefas, it's just great to have multiple copies of copycat. It's like being able to respond to your opponent's Eek with your own Eek, but mid-turn. So then you get to use those 7 cards that you just drew into. Granted, it is a supporter, so you don't get to play whatever other supporter you might draw, but it is still a very powerful card, and it's also very cheap. Set those aside over here. We'll see if we can kind of try and squeeze them all into the frame. It's German, so you kind of just have to trust me here, but this is Desert Shaman from Skyridge. The effect on this card as a supporter is that both players shuffle their hand into their deck and then draw up to 4 cards. So this is a great response to Eek as well, if you want to kind of gotcha your opponent. Like if you're all set with your cards and you've played out your hand, you don't really need anything else, but you can see that you've got more tempo than your opponent, and you want to seal the deal here. You can force your opponent to shuffle their hand away and draw. They're going to go up to 4 because they're trying to pick back up, but you make them put 3 of their cards away, essentially. So very, very strong, and it's also not very cheap. But I've seen this card come up a lot in a lot of WotC-20 decks, but very, very good. Then I've got 2 copies of Pokemon Fan Club. Really, really good setup card. So you search your deck for up to 2 baby Pokemon or basic Pokemon and put them directly onto your bench, and then you shuffle afterwards. So we're trying to get 2 lines. Mainly, we want a Scizor and we want a Kingdra line. If we already have one of those two, then maybe we want to get a Cleffa, maybe we want to get an Eevee. So this is really good for helping us get our full bench set up in the early turns especially. So very, very good there. And I will slide those over here. Hopefully we can still see that. Then I've got one copy of Town Volunteers. This is a great recovery card in this format. It's kind of like a beefier Super Rod for those of us who play Standard, but we're taking 5 baby Pokemon, basic Pokemon, evolution Pokemon, and or basic energy cards from our discard pile. You show them to your opponent, and then you shuffle them into your deck. So it is in the form of a supporter, so it's not, you know, as rapid as Super Rod. You can't use them in quick succession. However, you do get, you know, essentially a full evolution line back and then a couple energy cards to go with it. Not necessarily metal energy cards, but in a lot of cases we're looking at this and we're grabbing a Horsey, Seadra, Kingdra, and a couple water energies. And then we could build back. Or if our opponent's been hitting our water energies left and right, maybe we just grab the maximum amount of water energies and something else, you know? But yeah, all in all, just a really great recovery card. And then back to the regular trainers, we've got 2 item finder here. Just an amazing base set trainer card, discarding 2 cards from our hand to get back anything that we need. Especially, you know, if we discarded it earlier on in the game to like a computer search or a Professor Oak. This is an amazing way to get back your gold berries. Gold berries or gusts. Like, this is amazing utility, and I think every deck should be on at least one item finder. See if we can. All right, I think we have reached our limit for the right side of the screen, so I'll try and build. We could fill this in. I've got a computer search here. This is classic. It is discard 2 cards from your hand and search your deck for any card. So more often than not, we are using computer search to search for Pokemon Fan Club if it's in the early game. I think earlier this week, I'm using it to search for a Goldberry because I'm pretty much all set with everything else. But yeah, just really great card. Search for something that you don't have that you do need for setup. Hopefully we can still see everything that I'm trying to do with the cards here. All right, then I've got 3 copies of Goldberry. The reason for 3 copies of Goldberry and 0 Strength Charm is Goldberry is just so powerful in this deck, especially when you have 2 copies of Item Finder. The amount of times that you are able to have such incredible staying power with your 2 lines of Kingdra and Scizor and just keep them alive and ride them out is just unbelievable. Like, you go from having, you know, your opponent being ahead on prizes to you start drawing gold berries, and then you pull ahead and the tempo swings in your favor and you just stay on that Kingdra forever with these gold berries. These are literal 24 karat magic in the air. Like, they are amazing cards. And I highly recommend, if you're going to pick up this deck, this is something that I think is non-negotiable. All right. Moving on, I've also got 3 Gust of Wind. Gust of Wind is just amazing for having your opponent, like if they have a baby active, you put it back on their bench, then you can hopefully get it with some snipe damage, pull out something that you can use to swing the tempo in your favor. If your opponent's building up a big attacker, but you have access to Twister, then use Twister to get the energy off of their big attacker. Just all in all, really great card. It's just a boss's orders without being a supporter. Just incredible. Then I've got 3 copies of Pokemon Trader. I've been experimenting, like a lot of WotC-20 decks use 2, but I've been experimenting, and more lists have been ending up with 3. Especially Stage 2 lists. I think this is lended to a lot more consistent Stage 2 gameplay, more so than trying to add Breeder. Like, I know, you know, Breeder is good and it has its place. Not really in a Kingdra deck, because I think with Kingdra, you really want to have access to that Mud Splash. So Pokemon Trader is really the way here, and I'm just having so much success with Trader, so I can't really honestly recommend anything besides Trader. And I would say, you know, I'm going to continue to practice more and more games with 3 Trader and build more and more decks that have 3 copies of Trader. It's just so good. And then last but not least, we've got 2 copies of Professor Oak, the classic, you know, discard your hand and draw 7 cards. These, again, are from the classic collection, but and they say supporter, but for the purposes of WotC-20, obviously we're not playing it as a supporter. We are playing it as if it was from the original base set printing. I just have it here because everything that can shine, I would like for it to shine in this deck. So these are my 20 trainers that I've selected for this deck, and it's been quite the deck. I've gone 3-0, I believe 4 times, if I'm not mistaken, and then I've gone 2-1 one time. So yeah, it's been quite the impressive deck. Now we're moving on to the energy cards. I've got 4 copies of Metal Energy here. This is obviously for the Scizor. You got to have Metal Energy for Scizor, and yeah, can't really think of anything else to say here. It's amazing. Yeah, I'm struggling to find words here. Next, we've got 4 copies of the Double Colorless Energy. I went with the Japanese Classic Collection because I really love this gold border here. Double Colorless Energy applies to all of the Pokemon in this deck. I love it on the Kingdra to fill in for Twister, or even the Horsey for Reverse Thrust. I love it on Scizor because you get to, you know, have an earlier heavy metal if you only have a single metal and the 1 double colorless energy. And yeah, I mean, it also fits on Espeon if you need to use Espeon's attack. Let's see if I can pull it out real quick. Yeah, we've got Espeon here. But Espeon, of course, will require the Rainbow Energy attach as well, because I'm not running any basic Psychic Energy here. So if you need to use Damage Blast, just keep in mind you're going to need the Double Colorless Energy as well as 1 Rainbow Energy here. But at least Espeon is able to bounce the Rainbow Energy and move it around as needed. So that's good. And we've got the aforementioned Rainbow Energy. Rainbow Energy is only at 2, and that is because I wanted it to be able to fill the role mostly of either metal or water. Espeon is very rarely attacking, but it is there just in case. So we'll pick these up, slide them elsewhere, and we'll get to some of the utility energy here. So these are Cyclone Energy, and this is one of the main cards that I like to bounce and replay again and again and again with Espeon. When you play Cyclone Energy and attach it to your active Pokemon, your opponent has to switch their active Pokemon with one of their benched Pokemon. So if you have your opponent on the run and they keep hiding behind a baby Pokemon and hiding behind the baby rule, let's be honest, you can replay the Cyclone Energy. Well, first, you know, return it to your hand with Espeon and then replay it to your active Pokemon again, and then your opponent is forced to switch their baby Pokemon back to the bench and put something else out for you to go ahead and attack. So, and you can do that again and again as long as your opponent has failed to deal with your Espeon problem. So, amazing card. We call it Cyclone Bouncing. It's got its own unique name for the strategy. And to go along with that, we've also got the Warp Energy. If you attach Warp Energy to your active Pokemon, you get to retreat it without paying its cost. And it doesn't even count as retreating. It just moves to the bench. So we call that Warp Bouncing. And you get to freely retreat your Pokemon as long as you have one of these to continue to return back to your hand with Espeon. It is quite the strategy, these utility energies, and having them in tandem with Espeon in your deck. And then the very last energy in the deck is this set of 5 water energy. for powering up the Kingdra line. So that's the deck here. I hope you enjoyed the deck profile. If you enjoyed the video, you know, give it a like, give it a comment, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of the content, and we'll catch you next time.